I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a moment of silent thought and reflection. Calling the meeting to order. This meeting is posted and announced in accordance with Chapter 231 PL 1975. Mr. Jacobus, please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Kubler? He's not here.
Excused.
Mrs. Torres?
Present.
Mr. Frida?
Here.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Here.
Mr. Zangari?
Present.
Mr. Rivera?
Here. Are there any questions or concerns about the minutes from the October 20th, 2014 meeting? Hearing none. We have an SGO rep with us tonight, Ms. Priscilla Curry. Priscilla? Welcome.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening. My name is Priscilla. I'm currently a senior, and I'm the SGO secretary. I'm here to represent a report on the SGO. In the month of October, the SGO had a homecoming dance in which approximately 600 students attended. It was a great success. A lot of the students had a lot of fun. The students voted who they wanted to be their candidate. All candidates received a scholarship in the Belleville Kiwanis organization. The student government organization also raised money for the ALS Foundation. We collected the money by hosting an ice bucket challenge during our fall pep rally, in which consisted of 4 teachers volunteering on getting ice poured on them. We collected around $150. It was a great success. A lot of us had fun, and it brought awareness as well as school spirit. In the month of November, both Key Club and FBLA will have a food drive and a coat drive, which will be located in the front of the school. As soon as you enter, there's bins, which be decorated, so people could put bins or coats which they will not be using, or food that they would like to donate. The computer club will participate in No Shave November. The objective of No Shave November is to donate money to the American Cancer Society. Instead of spending money on grooming and shaving supplies, you will use the money to donate to the American Cancer Society. We will also be having the Christmas toy drive, which will be located outside of the bus stop, which is, as soon as you enter the school, there's the main entrance, and then there's a little section where there's, which is the bus stop, and we'll have a bucket, like a plastic bin in which toys would be brought in, and we will give it to families or people that we believe are in need. FCCLA and FBLA are competing in regionals and state competitions. Selected members will travel to competitions in New Jersey representing Belleville High School. On Tuesday, November 18th, which is tomorrow, the seniors will be hosting a senior fashion show, in which all proceeds will go to the senior class of 2015. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Priscilla, you can either sit with us, or and if you have schoolwork that you need to get done, you can be excused.
I'll sit and listen.
Thank
Thank you.
You can stay up here if you like.
Sure.
Items to be presented by administration, Mr. Acosta.
Just a couple of things before we go on to a presentation this evening. The SGO representative brought up homecoming. I never went to homecoming even in my own school when I was growing up. and I happened to pop in the day of homecoming. I just want to say whoever was in charge of decorating and organizing it did a fantastic job. The place looked great. Kids were having fun. So I thought it was a very successful event. Just wanted to congratulate and recognize our newly elected board members that will take office at the January reorganization meeting. I only see one present today, Ms. Patty Dolan, and also Mr. Ralph Alonso. Congratulations to them. As far as CUSAC is concerned, just a quick update. Our long-term plan for instruction and program has been submitted to the county superintendent, and we are currently waiting for approval on that. As soon as we find out it's approved, it will be posted on the website. Actually, I think that's it for me. At this point, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Russ Pagano, principal of Belleville High School, with a very important, I guess, an award that's been given to one of our teachers. Mr. Pagano.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, administration, teachers, students, parents, and community members. Tonight, Dr. Joy Alfano, science teacher at Belleville High School, will be presented with an award for her work on the Voya Unsung Heroes Grant for Innovative Teaching Program. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Regional Vice President, Neha Tiaker of Voya Financial, who drove up from Virginia today to come to the podium and present this award to Ms. Alfano.
Good evening. Thank you, Principal Pagano. President Rivera, Superintendent Acosta, Principal Pagano, members of the board. Again, my name is Nathan Talker. I'm with Voya Financial. I'm very excited to be here this evening. We're honored to recognize a teacher who is a pioneer in the development of innovative teaching methods and committed to improving student learning, what we refer to as a true unsung hero. But before we formally recognize her, I'd just like to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about Voya and the Unsung Heroes Awards program. Voya Financial is a preeminent retirement, investment, and insurance company serving the financial needs of approximately 13 million Americans across the U.S. The company's vision is to become America's retirement company, and its guiding principle is centered on solving the most daunting financial challenge facing Americans today, retirement readiness. For more than 40 years, Voya, through its predecessor companies, has been a leader in providing retirement savings plans to teachers around the U.S., and we currently support over 721,000 educators across the country in terms of helping them plan for retirement. Voya established the Unsung Heroes program as a way to reward educators who have the vision to try new or innovative methods to inspire kids' learning. We strive to make a difference in the lives of American school children and to help build a strong educational foundation for their future. Since the program started nearly 20 years ago, we've granted over $5 million to approximately 2,000 teachers nationally. Winners are selected based on innovative teaching methods, creative educational projects, and the ability to go above and beyond to improve student learning. There are 100 national winners selected, and it's done on by a third-party independent. Scholarship America does the evaluation, so it's an independent nonprofit organization that's evaluating the winners. So it's a pretty tremendous honor to have one of 100 educators nationally to be the recipient of this award. I'd like to ask Dr. Alfano to join me. And I want to just read a little bit about what her program is. Dr. Alfano's innovative teaching idea, Buccaneer Envirobotics, will involve supporting a new robotics enrichment program that seeks to enhance student learning in science, technology, engineering, and math, combined with environmental sustainability. Students will learn through inquiry-based, hands-on activities that will lead to more authentic learning and inspiration to pursue college or a career in environmental science and STEM disciplines. The program is in its beginning stages and was formed out of an intense student demand for a technology club. Alfano chose to integrate environmental stewardship and sustainability with all of her class activities, which students have embraced as an overarching theme. The newly acquired supplies will allow students to design and create inventions for a better environment. Alfano will build upon student enthusiasm and her experience as an environmental scientist to develop a stellar program that addresses both community and global environmental issues. I believe you already see what a tremendous program Buccaneer Envirobotics will be. Dr. Alfano, on behalf of Voya, please accept this plaque in recognition of innovation and excellence in education. Voya Unsung Heroes Awards Program honors America's classroom heroes and their innovative program that takes student learning to new heights. Dr. Principal Pagano.
Thank you for letting me speak. The award really belongs to the students. The students came to me a few years ago and they wanted to start a technology club, and we really wanted to put together something that would help the students not only build their skills in science, technology, engineering, and math, but also that would give and connect us with our community. I think all of you and Mr. Pagano, all the administration, for their support, but I dedicate this award and accept it on behalf of all of the students who really, I wish I could put all of their names on the board. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item to be presented by administration is the State Monitor's Report. Mr. Egan.
Thank you. After such a wonderful presentation, and it's enlightening to me, it fills me with pride for Belleville to see that you have such dedicated staff that would come up with such great ideas. And I'm not an educator by occupation, but I do know it's more than just coming up with the idea. That there must have been a lot of hard work and a lot of our own time that you put into this to have it succeed. And my hat's off to it. And now we go back to the harsh realities of the finances. There are a lot of rumors, misconceptions of what's going on in Belleville concerning the finances. Everything is revolving around the audit. It's called the CAFR, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And the auditors are finishing. They have a 98% finished with the finances part. There's some other things they must do about in the area of compliance to fill out the report. Mr. Jeffrey Bliss from the firm of Lurch, Vinci and Higgins will be present at next month's meeting to go over the entire report and detail all the finances, and then he'll be available to answer any and all questions. I urge everybody to come here for yourself what the report is. It does document that for the school year ending June 30th of 14, that expenditures exceeded revenues by just over $4.2 million. The district had surplus, which went to offset some of that, but the deficit itself will be approximately a little over $3.5 million. You'll see some resolutions later on about relating to the 14-15 year, in which it references that the 14-15 is possibly being overexpended, that there's maybe not enough funds available to meet all the district's obligations. 14-15 year is fine. The reason that language is there is we're required to have it by, but the reason that there is some shortcomings is because funds from the 14-15 year are being used to pay off the 13-14 deficit. But everything that was budgeted for the 14-15 would have been able to take care of all the budgeted and anticipated expenditures. During this troubled time, I must commend the mayor and council because they accelerated some of their state aid payments to us. And the state of New Jersey also accelerated some of their state aid payments so that we can be solvent and stay afloat. The state now is actively researching and putting together a package for the school district to make up for the total shortfall. They will not commit to anything until they actually see the independent auditor's report. So we're moving forward though. There is progress, and by the end of this school year, definitely by the springtime, the district will be, the deficit won't be an issue anymore. We'll be moving forward and moving forward in the right direction to educate the children. There's one other issue out there that is on everybody's minds, at least from people talking and from the emails that I received, is the state of our telephone system and our technology. We're in the process of working with technology consultants, with financial institutions, to come up with a financial plan to replace the backbone of the technology equipment, most of which is antiquated and what they call end of life, which they can't be supported anymore. And they easily crash, and they have to be rebooted, and you lose information. But the whole technology is constantly being interrupted. The goal is to have that all fixed and in place by January 1st, or maybe by the end of January, but definitely in time for the park testing, which the state is mandating for all districts to be ready for. The representatives from the state have been up visiting the district and inspecting the technology system, and they have made recommendations along with others on how to fix it, and we're following those. We're following their plan. Once again, I urge you to come to the next month's meeting so you can have the auditor available to explain to you and document, and hopefully everybody can hear the same message, and maybe you can put to rest some of the misconceptions and the rumors, because that just drives everybody crazy. So ends my report. Thank you.
Items, remarks, and committee reports to be presented by board members. Mr. Grasso.
I also would like to congratulate the new elected board members, Pat Dolan and Ralph Malone, and hope that the time that you serve is educationally productive and satisfying to you in the Belleville community. Just as a little sidebar, when I was teaching, a young teacher, and there were veteran teachers of 30 and 35 and 40 years, and they used to say, regardless of what's going on, during my tenure, I've seen many board members, several superintendents, several principals, but I started out as a teacher and I want to end up as a teacher, because your kids are still getting a great education, because that teacher walks into the classroom and does what they love to do, be in front of the kids. They're always prepared. They're not going to walk in there without a lesson plan. And regardless of how many supplies they have or lack, they're going to improvise and do the job that they love to do. I just wanted to throw that in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grasso. Mrs. Torres?
I'd also like to say congratulations to Ralph Malone and Pat Dolan. Welcome, and I look forward to working with both of you in the coming year. I'd also like to to congratulate Dr. Joy Alfano. I believe she's already gone. But it's really rewarding to sit here and see that our teachers are being honored so greatly, and that they have such commitment and such dedication to our children. So I thank her, and I thank her students as well, because it is a team effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Torres. Mr. Zangari?
Thank you, Mr. President. Also like to congratulate Dr. Alfano on a wonderful award and a recognition to Belleville, and to see how she shares in that with her students, really wonderful. Last Tuesday was Veterans Day. I want to wish a happy Veterans Day to all of our staff who served in the armed forces. Two off the top of my head, Aida Cordona and Robert Lassard, Vietnam vet, over at School 5. Wishing them a happy Veterans Day. To our board member-elect, Mr. Milan, maybe a veteran. Happy Veterans Day. And to all the students who have parents serving for our armed forces. That is all I have this evening, Mr. President. The only thing I ask is that we put a couple committee meetings together for technology with some of the upcoming plans that we are going to undertake. Also, a committee meeting for personnel and a committee meeting for policy. We spoke about some things in private, and certainly some policy needs to be addressed. And that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Acosta, will you please arrange those committee meetings?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Frieda?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to also congratulate Dr. Alfano on that award. We're always delighted to see any of our staff or students receive an award. But I think, as Mr. Zangari and Ms. Torres touched on, it was truly touching to see how she was immediately willing to share it with her students too. So congratulations once again to her. Secondly, I would also like to congratulate Mr. Milan and Ms. Dolan on being newly elected board members. Congratulations to both of you. Finally, I have an update on the superintendent search. The entire board met with Strategic Educational Advantage. Those are the folks that are doing the recruiting for us. We met with them on November 6th to discuss the questions that will be asked as to set up a schedule. Now, as you know, there was a Survey Monkey that was put out on that, and Strategic Educational Advantage, the gentleman from that firm, they took everybody's input, they combined it all together, and from that, a series of questions were developed that the candidates will be asked. We went over those questions on November 6th. According to the original schedule, we were actually supposed to start interviewing tomorrow. However, as I was told today via email, there have been approximately 45 applicants that have applied for the position, so they are in the process of vetting them to give us a subset of them. So at this point, as of today, no additional meetings have been scheduled, but I expect that they will get back to us within the next couple of days so that we can then schedule the interview process. End of report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. Mr. Simple?
Mr. President, if I could just add to what Mr. Frieda said, because I think it's something to look forward to. Before we were told we had 44 candidates this evening when we met with the firm last. They were at 26 highly qualified candidates, 13 sitting superintendents that span from probably half the country. So I just think it's something that we can look forward to, and it's nice to see that so many skilled professionals have interest in coming here in Belleville. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Zangari. Mrs. Lombardi?
Thank you. I'd like to also congratulate Dr. Alfano and Mr. Pagano and the students. That's wonderful, on the Unsung Hero Grant. Thank you to our SGO rep for giving us your report tonight and sitting with us through the meeting. Just want to mention, tomorrow night we have the senior fashion show. Wednesday evening we have a faculty versus student volleyball game fundraiser here at the high school. And Friday, School 4 has a tricky track. I'd also like to congratulate Ms. Dolan, Mr. Vallon. I look forward to working with you in January. Congratulations. And I'd also like to schedule a grant committee meeting, Mr. Acosta, for early December. I'm waiting for Ms. Torres to give me her availability, and then I'll come to you with some dates, and maybe we can get going. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lombardi. I'll echo the congratulations to Dr. Alfano. I think that's great. $2,000 will, I'm sure, help our students achieve some of their goals. To our new board members, congratulations. Look forward to having you on this side of the table so you get a little different perspective as to what actually goes on, and you get a better insight as to what's happening here. And I'm sure we'll all be able to work together. We have a motion to open for public participation. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Remarks by citizens. Remarks regarding agenda items and issues that are relevant to the educational system. A participant must sign in and be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface comments by an announcement of his or her name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. The individual called shall proceed with a maximum of 5 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the President of the Board of Education. No participant may address board members individually. Tom Cohen, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Tom McCrone, Continental Avenue, Belleville. I have comments that are all over the place. Mr. Egan, you mentioned technology, and you talked about end of life, and I understand that. I hope with all that's going on, with the changes that are going to be made, with the changes in upper administration, there are certain things like the televisions that we purchased. I hope they don't disappear. The 2,000 thumb drives that are supposedly in Mr. Jacobus's office, locked in his closet. I hope the new business administrator gets a key to that closet. But again, it's so easy for things to just go missing, and if you no longer have the same business administrator, if you no longer have the same superintendent, or whatever, it's like, well, they were here, we don't know what happened to them, we have to move on. Under personnel, one of the first items I noticed was item number 3, the resignation of our Braille paraprofessional. I'm assuming that's the same person that was brought up last week or last month. I hope the reason that she resigned was not because of the problems of her having to buy her own supplies. Last time we saw a presentation on CUSAC. Are we going to see a presentation on New Jersey Ask, or am I just too late? Because I just recently saw figures, I assumed that they were current, that it was new, but I don't know if that's the case. I saw a site where they list, we did this already?
Last board meeting.
No, it's CUSAC. I'm talking New Jersey Ask. Oh, all right.
We did both.
Okay. I thought it was interesting. I saw a state listing of schools. The number 3 school in the state was a school in Bloomfield, Oakview School. So it's one of our neighbors. Our best school, ironically, was School 10. They were ranked something like 400 and something out of the something like 1,200 schools that were ranked. I don't know that we're that different from Bloomfield. Item number 6, we talk about teachers being hired from Source for Teachers. Is that Source for Teachers any different than the district substitute list that we used to have?
They use the same list.
Okay. Because it talks about substitutes. It was brought up in September about the nurses. And I know a comment was made by the superintendent that it's not a dead deal. He understands we need nurses and we're going to do something as soon as we can. That was September. It's now November. I think we're playing with the time bomb. When I went to school, when some of you went to school, the nurse was there to put Band-Aids on cuts and maybe, do incidental little things. It's changed so drastically. We have kids in school that are on medication it's my understanding, a student cannot self-administer medication. It has to be kept in the nurse's office. So if that person has to take something twice a day or 3 times a day, and they have to go to the nurse's office to take it, and that nurse has been moved to another school because of emergency, what does that person do? We also have students that I know of that have to test their blood 3 times a day. The nurse currently does that. If she's called out of the building, again, what do we do? And if the nurses are outsourced, are we seeing the same nurses every day, every week, or is it a revolving door? My same question about special ed. I don't expect you to know the number, but maybe you should. How many special ed teachers do we have or how many special ed classes or situations do we still have that are being taken care of by substitutes? We are really doing an injustice to the kids that have special needs. And if we do have substitutes in for these special needs kids, is it the same substitute every day so it's somebody they can be comfortable with? Or is it somebody that's new every week, every month, whatever? A question, and it just because of my curiosity, why twice on tonight's agenda do we identify an employee by a number where everywhere else we identify them by a name? Again, it's just my curiosity. If somebody can explain that to me?
We asked the same question.
We asked the same question.
Yeah.
Who knows? Mr. Costa?
Mr. Jacobus?
And the ball bounces around, sir.
We asked the same question.
I have to say that we clarified for the board the name of the person who's moving up on the step. We will visit that and see in the future if it's going to be consistent. Some districts use numbers, sometimes it's names.
But again, you only did it twice tonight.
I understand. We're
Why?
going to address it for the next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, it was
You don't know
confusing.
why.
Mr. McCall, the answer is it was confusing to us as well. We'd rather see names. There were particular instances where we'd rather use a name than embarrass the person.
That's an answer. Fine. That's okay.
And so
I
that may
thought
have been-
perhaps
in this particular case, there's no hidden agenda.
Okay. No.
It was just done that way, and we've asked that they not do it that way in the future.
And I thought perhaps it had something to do with rice litters. The person's name was going to be brought up. They said, I don't want my name brought up, so you identified them by number. I was just curious. Items 17 and 18, where we are appointing a new interim assistant principal and a new interim board secretary. I notice it says with no benefits. I'm assuming that's because these 2 people are already retired?
Correct.
All right. Nice. Again, we're saving money.
That's not the reason. The reason is because they're independent contractors.
They're independent contractors who happen to be retired.
That's right.
Okay.
It's not the case in both situations.
I'm sorry?
It is not the case in
Oh,
both
okay.
situations.
The point that I was going to make was that if, for example, the interim business administrator, if that is already a retired person, it's my understanding, if they are already collecting their pension, they can only be an interim for 2 years. So if we're going to invest in that person for 2 years and then they're going to say, I'm sorry, I have to leave.
I don't know what the plan is as far as that, sir, but I don't believe it's going to be a 2-year tenure.
Okay.
And Mr. McCone, I'm sorry, but your time is up. Mr. Acosta, if you would just address the nursing issue. I know we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, to sort of
put Mr. McCrone at ease, sir.
Yeah, I've got a couple of answers for you, actually. As far as the nurses are concerned, there is a schedule or a rotation where if a nurse is not present in one building, there is a nurse that is supposed to cover that building, so they know who they are and what building they are to report to if there is an issue. So there is a system in place that's been in place for years. I mean, we have one nurse in each building currently. So in the few cases where, you know, someone's out, we couldn't get coverage, and we have to kind of shift the nurses around, they have a set schedule where they know where they have to be throughout the day. As far as the special ed teachers, the majority of those teachers are at the middle school. We have now hired teachers, certified teachers for those positions. I believe we are now up to date as far as that's concerned with the substitutes.
That's good to hear.
Thank you, Mr. McCrone. Michael Sheldon, please come to the podium. State your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street, Belleville. Good evening. My question tonight regards the recent New Jersey School Boards Association conference that took place at the end of October. I would like to know, did any members of the Board of Education or any senior administrators attend that three-day conference?
Yes.
I did.
That's all right. Would it be possible just for a quick poll, just to raise of hands so that the audience knows who attended that meeting?
One day, I mean.
Mr. Kubler also did, is not here.
All right, thank you. The reason I bring this up is I'd like to know, as a result of attending this conference, were the expenses of board members covered out of pocket, or were they covered by the budget, by ultimately the taxpayers? It's my understanding that for Board of Education members, these expenses are in fact covered out of the budget, out of taxpayer revenue. Is that correct?
They were covered in the past,
Right.
but this year we paid our own way.
Oh, you did?
We did.
All right. Okay, very good. I'm glad to hear that, because I was leading, you probably anticipate, that's where I was going with my question. I know that the teachers, when they have their conference, cover the expenses for lodging and meals, et cetera, out of their own pockets. And I was hoping that we could get that response from you, Ms. Lombardi, that you, in light of the deficit, that as a good show of faith, that you paid for the expenses this time around out of your own pockets. All right, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Monica Edrovo, please come to the podium. State your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate.
Good evening, everyone. Monica Hidrogo, 97 Tappan Avenue here in Belleville. I'm here on behalf of my parents and actually representing my sister, Luisa Hidrogo, who is also present here. She's a senior here at Belleville High School. First and foremost, I would like to mention that she's blind, she's visually impaired, and she needs special accommodations in order for her to receive the same education and be in the same footing as her peers. Recently, as stated in the paper, actually number 3, personal, there was pretty much a resignation of Annette Del Maro. That was my sister's paraprofessional, who initially was full-time paraprofessional. My sister takes classes and she requires a full-time person to transcribe the material to her. Now she was resigned. Annette was pretty much, she knew Braille and she was able to transcribe the material to her. Now she resigned this past Friday and I am aware that a new person came into place to replace her. Now, being that she needs the person to be next to her, a paraprofessional, this person must know Braille. I have become aware that the person is not Braille trained, she does not know Braille, and I wanted to pretty much ask how is it possible that a student who needs these accommodations is getting a person who doesn't know how to transcribe in Braille? Now, it is important to mention that my sister is a senior who still has 6 months to go in high school. This issue pretty much can stop her from graduating high school and really achieving higher education going into college. Again, there's still 6 months left, and me and my family are very concerned about this issue, being that my sister really needs these accommodations. And it is law and federal mandated that they should have someone who is Braille trained that should be able to take this position. So I wanted to know who I can hold accountable for ensuring that my sister is going to get someone who is qualified for the job and meets all the qualifications required.
Have you come into the offices and met with special services?
Yes, I actually gave a call to special services and I missed to get the name. They told me they were getting someone because initially, back prior to Annette leaving, they got someone who came for a day and she didn't know how to use computers. So then they hired a new person. Her name is Rebecca, who my sister has given a lot of good comments about her, but at the end of the day, it's about the job that she's doing and whether or not she's capable of transcribing the material, which I am aware she doesn't know how to Braille.
So this is the first that we're hearing about this? I mean, you shouldn't take it.
Mr. Rivera?
Yeah.
If you'd be so kind, after the meeting, if I can get your contact information, I will absolutely take care of it. I wish Mr. Klein was here tonight, but he has other obligations, so I can't ask him. He's a director of special services. So I will definitely make sure that this is rectified. There's.
Yes, and another thing I wanted to mention is that I am aware that Annette resigned because her hours were cut off part-time. Regardless of her hours being cut off part-time, she was still working full-time, and she didn't even take lunches or any breaks because my sister needed her material to be transcribed. Annette has 2 daughters. Eventually, she needs the money. She had to go. But my question is, how can someone take a job that requires full-time hours for a job that doesn't have any benefits or any, necessary, the benefits in general, and for my sister to pretty much get her job done and graduate high school. So that's one concern that I wanted to bring up. Now, the third thing I wanted to bring up is I am aware in the last board meeting, a teacher spoke for my sister about Braille paper that we had to pay. Now, again, I am voicing this concern, although it was fixed, we received the refund, that being that my sister is the only one who's visually impaired, I'm aware there's other students who are handicapped, but because a student, or there's this limited number of students, there shouldn't be an issue that can be left to a side compared to the number of students in high school. It is one student, or it might be a handful of students who need the same attention as everybody else in school. So with that being said, I actually would like to know who I can hold accountable for ensuring that my sister will get the right person for her education.
See me.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. That was all. Thank you.
William Milden, please come to this podium. State your name, your address, and your affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Bill Milden, Hunkle Street, Belleville. I was going to bring that up. I just want to know, was she reimbursed money for that rail book?
I just stated she was, sir.
A lot of people ask me something like the Clarity contract. Couldn't the taxpayers be able to vote on that, whether they wanted it or not? Don't they have a voting process for that? I mean, we do pay for it.
The answer is no. For a normal contract, there's no referendum conducted.
And also, I've asked about maybe 20 or 30 different people whether they would prefer nurses or armed guards in the schools. Every one of them said nurses, so far. And, the tracking devices or surveillance tags, what is the range of them? I still haven't been able to get an answer. The range of them?
I can answer that. Within the school property and on buses, school buses.
And how about when they travel off the buses and on the
No.
property?
Just what I just said, within the school property and on buses.
Okay. Thank you.
Vincent Franzantoni, please come to the podium. State your name, your address, and your affiliation if appropriate.
Vincent Franzantoni, on Prospect Avenue, representing myself. Did we find out why the lights aren't on in Clearman Field?
I apologize, Mr. Frantantoni, I forgot to ask. I will absolutely ask.
Right. Like I said, years ago, we got them lights installed because there was problems with a hangout and some unsavory characters hanging around there, so I appreciate they get put on there. Under A19, the $2,000 stipend for Mr. Acosta, is he also still a principal for?
She is still the principal student for, yes.
Is there someone sitting in at 4, taking
Mr.
over that
Acosta.
acting job?
We've had Mrs. Hawthorne going in a few times a week, as well as other administrators covering from time to time, and myself.
Are they receiving stipends or salaries?
Mrs. Hawthorne.
Nothing in addition to what their normal pay would be.
Well, Ms. Hawthorne was retired, wasn't she?
Correct. She's contracted to come back.
All right, and so how much is she being paid?
Mr. Jacobus, I mean, this was voted on last
I believe it's $400 a day. She was approved earlier in the.
500.
Oh, everybody knows, I think it's 400. I don't believe it's 500. I think it's 400, but I would have to look. I was approved at an earlier meeting.
You know, we're in such dire financial straits, that's why I had proposed that we keep Ms. Feldman and make her do the job, because I anticipate all these extra costs we're going through. Now, with all the eyes on the school district now, I think Mrs. Feldman would have been forced to do her job. But here, you know, when we get the final task, we're in a deficit, and we're spending tons of money that I don't think we should have to pay. Now, in regards to you putting an ad in the paper online, asking the citizens of Belleville for their input on searching for a superintendent. I take umbrage to that because you didn't ask us for our input when you gave the Clarity contract. You didn't ask for our input for the IP consultant. You didn't ask for all the patronage jobs you created and the sweetheart contracts you administered. So now at this point, you're asking us for input. I don't know why you're doing that, because we have some experts in-house with some very great qualifications. We have one person who's a Microsoft certified professional, a certified technology specialist, an information technology professional, an enterprise support technician, and has various certifications in advanced technical education. That was Mr. Zangari in his campaign literature. What were you doing as a Board of Education member with all these credentials to let this deficit get out of control? We also have another expert in-house. I have more than 20 years of managerial experience in increasingly responsible positions in banking, brokerage, and healthcare finance. As an internal auditor, I have performed hundreds of compliance audits. I have trained staff and clients on issues facing our industry. Having worked on budgets and staffing, I have extensive cost and benefit analysis experience. Why do you want our input? That's Mr. Rivera's campaign literature. And you allowed this 4-point-something million overexpenditure to go. And then we have a vice president of a major financial institution. My responsibilities include security architecture, where I ensure our software is safe, secure, and compliant with security policies. That's Mr. Frieda. We have all these experts, and yet we wind up with a 4.2 million overspent and 3 million deficit and all that. Where was your expertise? What were you doing sitting up there? We elected you, and now you're asking us for our input. And I think at some point, at least you three ought to make a very, very public apology for you overseeing our public school system. And Mr. Frieda, you'll be leaving us soon, but maybe you can give back a little bit to the community. Perhaps you can encourage your in-laws who got that sweetheart contract to put that property in their will, leaving it to the Board of Ed rather than you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frantoni. Frantoni, your time is up. Jeff Mattingly, please come to the podium, state your name, address, group affiliation, if appropriate.
Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut. As you can see tonight, and we're all very hopeful with the recent election, and congratulations to you both, really. It's wonderful news for us that hopefully we'll have cooperation and openness in the future. But the public still is pretty smarting, don't you think? It's very difficult to let go of the things that have happened in the past year or 2 years and where we are now. And I think it's going to take a lot of time and healing, and certainly we have a lot of questions in terms of who is actually responsible for such a monumental failure. So in the end, we hope that investigations will take their course, the people who were responsible will be held accountable, and that in the end, that'll be that, and we can move on. Because right now, we have children to teach, and we just heard that it's going to take virtually this entire year just to get our footing back. So there isn't going to be any huge statistical gains this year. For all the good intentions and the hard work that'll come, it's simply not going to show. And so we have to look further down the road and be patient and wait once again. And I think that the public's patience, and the parents and the children too, are pretty thin on patience. So I'd like to just take a moment, and having said all that, really hope and pray that this coming year, in January, we'll start a new beginning and a cooperation that'll be complete between staff, administration, and taxpayers, parents, children, grandchildren, seniors, all the people in this town who ultimately pay it all. We get the bill for everything, good, bad, and indifferent. And it's our children and our children's future, and that's taken very seriously, very seriously. So my prayer is that we do truly begin to turn over a new leaf. And administration, you know, and everybody else, that Belleville's under the microscope in multiple directions by any number of people. So we really need that cooperation. And I can tell you that the people that I know who are regular contributors at these meetings are on board and 100% ready to help out in any way we can. And not just simply on a questionnaire. And so I do have a question, Mr. Rivera. I see that Mr. Frieda spoke to the superintendent's search committee progress. Mr. Zingari commented. Who is on that committee? Do we know?
Myself, Ms. Torres is on there, and Ms. Lombardi.
Which is the subcommittee.
That's the subcommittee.
That's, okay, so that's your core committee. Okay. That's nice to know. Thank you for the answer. I appreciate that. The interaction with the other board members, very welcome. You know, for a long time this year, Mr. Rivera, it's been you alone. And you didn't hand it off. You didn't move laterally. You know, I'd like to see the people who have knowledge impart that knowledge. I mean, it's only fair. It's only right. Like I say, we get the bill. There are children. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Motion to close public participation. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on to resolutions, may I have a motion on A, personnel?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is there any discussion?
just like to highlight, Mr. Rivera, that on number A7, where just the ID number is given, that is a contractual obligation and not a raise or promotion in any way. I just wanted to clear that up, maybe a little complicated. Lack of description.
Thank you, Mr. Zangari. Any further discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso? I'm sorry?
Said no. No, calling for a vote, sir.
Yes.
I was surprised. Okay. Mr. Grasso's vote is yes. Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Frida?
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Zangari?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes. There is no curriculum and instruction. And moving on to C, board action, board policy. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso? Yes. Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Frida?
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Zangari?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes. Moving on to D, purchasing and business services. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Actually, Mr. President, I had a question regarding, that would be D3. Okay, Mr. Costa, I think we spoke about this earlier. Can you please just verify the terms of the hosting capabilities of that? We just want to make sure that they have adequate redundancy. In that I understand it's going to be stored, everything's going to be stored out-of-site, but my question would be, in the event that they have a server failure, do they have the redundancy in place to make sure that we don't suffer an outage? That was the only question that I had on that.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. Any further discussion?
Yes. Can we verify the amount? 14,900. Did that number change?
14,600.
So it should be 14,600.
Mr. Jacobus, could you amend that, please?
Yes. And the public has the public has the new amount.
Do they? I guess
Yes.
they get the- all right.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso? Yes. Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Frida?
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Zangari?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes. Moving on to E, finance. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso? Yes. Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Frida?
Yes, with the exception.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Yes, with exception.
Mr. Zangari?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes. A motion to adjourn?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
there was a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, correct?
Yes, sir.
For the
For the
superintendent.
superintendent search, yes, sir.
That was canceled.
That has been canceled.
Okay, or the firm is going to speak with Mr. Jacobus on Wednesday and reschedule, correct?
Yes.
And we are going to post that for a meeting?
Yeah,
It has
we'll
to be
need to
posted as
repost.
a meeting, correct?
I'm not sure. Do we have to post that as a meeting, Tom?
Yeah, because we had the entire board was
It's the
supposed to be
entire,
here.
it's the entire board will be there.
So we will have to post that.
Yes.
It will just be a working meeting, there will be no open.
Okay.
Just to note that.
If I just may just further clarify that, Mr. Jacobus, I know they'll do this, but just in the event that they don't, see if they can give us 3 available dates for them, and this way we can work to make sure the entire board is available.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So motion to adjourn? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you and good night.